And we saw how you turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God. And this is the clincher here. You turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God. Idolatry is an old problem, but it's an ongoing problem. We think of idols like back in the Old Testament, golden calf, that thing buried in Achan's tent. We think of all the problems that Jeremiah and Isaiah talked about, these things crafted out of gold. But these showed up in the New Testament too. Paul talked about them regularly. He encountered them in the book of Acts. The Apostle John says, little children, last word in his letter, little children, beware of idols. It's still a problem. An idol is anything that you replace God for, that becomes your first love, your primary escape, or your ultimate source of meaning. We do it all the time. We're going to look at those here in a minute. But the true focus of our life should be the living God, the true God, the God who's declared in Scripture, the God who sent Jesus to save us. The Thessalonians had a problem with false gods. There were 25 of them at least that were noted back then. We find them on coins. We find them in what we can excavate from the parts of temples that are still available there. They worshiped Dionysus, the god of wine and merrymaking. They worshiped a guy named Cabarrus, who was a young person who went around shirtless and had a hammer in one hand and a cup in the other. He liked to work hard and play hard. Serapis was an Egyptian god. A lot of these Egyptian gods had power over death or power to give life and health. They had all sorts of gods. Such a total renunciation of all the pagan deities also meant a complete rejection of the variety of social events closely associated with the worship of these gods. Here's the problem. When you turn from a god in Thessalonica, you also turn from your family, and you turn from the marketplace, and you turn from Rome and the emperor, because when you're saying no to those things, those are deeply tied to your social circles, your public identity. So when you turn from that, you turn from everything. All you're left with is the living God and now the community of Christians. It was a big risk to get rid of idols in those days. A big risk. Your shop might close. Your family might kick you out. You might lose money. You might lose friends. Such actions by Christians evoked feelings of resentment and anger in their non-Christian family members and their friends. The exclusivity of these Christians, because you could just add the Christian God, right? Just add Jesus to Dionysus and Cabarrus and Serapis. Just add Jesus. But Paul is saying, no, it's only Jesus. So this exclusivity of these Christians, their seemingly arrogant refusal to participate in the worship of any god but their own, deeply wounded public sensibilities and even led to the charges that they were, it's interesting, right? The Christians were atheists, which means no God. In the early church, Christians were called atheists because they only believed in one God, not the many gods. And we still believe in the one God, the one triune God. But we're not considered atheists. Atheists today are people who believe in no God. The world's changed. But our allegiance to Jesus shouldn't